I think, and
nice.
Lee, correct me if I'm wrong, that Chinese interests may be subverting this country to, global dominance of some sort.
I think it's the interest of our elite.
Yeah.
That's subverting this country. I mean, their ties. I mean, I've talked about this. I've written about it a bit, and the big problem, I think, is China a strategic threat to the United States? Yes, definitely. But the bigger strategic threat to the United States is our elites, who have been selling this country off piece by piece, betraying this country to the Chinese Communist Party for decades now. So, believe me, I'm not making excuses for what the Chinese Communist Party is doing, how they're trying to hurt America. But the biggest problem again is I think that Donald Trump had it right when Donald Trump said, I can't really pick on Xi or their leaders. They're just doing what they think is right for their country. How many of our leaders, national, state, municipal, how many of our leaders have our interest at stake? If you look at places like, we come back to New York again, is that really the way that Andrew Cuomo is governing state of New York, the way that Bill de Blasio is running New York City? Is that in the interest of New Yorkers? Very hard to believe.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not. When they put all those homeless people, and many of them are like convicted criminals, next to the wealthy apartments, and then people are getting attacked.
They emptied out the Upper West Side, right? I mean, the amount of people who were moving out of there, and these people in lots of ways, they were the vitality, the wit, and the imagination of New York, people living on the Upper West Side. They cleared them out, right? They cleared them out by sticking homeless people and putting halfway houses up there on the Upper West Side.
I'm pretty sure one of the individuals was like a child offender near a school. Yes. And so naturally the wealthy people who were there were the first to be like, I can leave and I will leave.
Right.
And it was almost, it seems like it was intentional.
Right.
Target the wealthy who can flee immediately, and they do.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So that's what I mean. I think it's our leadership. It's our leadership who's not looking out for us. If you look at what the Biden administration is doing, you truly have to wonder. I mean, I'll mention it again. The first day you put that much energy, the XL, closing down the pipeline. Why? Why is that so? Why was that so vital? The number of jobs that costs and will cost, and you just look at a number of different policies, both foreign and domestic. Was it really that important? Do we need to be underwriting Hamas's war in the Middle East by sending $5.5 million for reconstruction in Gaza? I'm not sure. Did anyone vote for that? Who voted for these things?
The people voted for Biden.
Yeah.
We are not a democracy. We're a representative constitutional republic. And so in this regard, there is a challenge in that the politicians lie. I mean, in this regard, this is what you get when you elect someone not because of their policies, but because you don't like the other guy. And it's the best example of it. So, very often we've had the two-party system where it's like, oh, man, McCain's so bad, I got to vote for Obama. Oh, Obama's so bad, I got to vote for McCain. Yeah, but this one was like the epitome of like people coming out screaming Trump was bad. And, man, I couldn't imagine this. The people who really believe the mainstream press about Trump really do live in this psychotic, paranoid, delusional state. This permanent, perpetual, paranoid delusion where Donald Trump is literally Hitler and all this crazy stuff's happening. It's just not true.
The worst thing about it is if you see the coverage coming out of the New York Times or the different reporters who are based in New York. I mean, Donald Trump has been a New York figure for 5 decades, right? All these people have heard of Donald Trump. They all know who Donald Trump is. Now, there's lots of things that you can say about Donald Trump. You don't like his attitude. You don't like his policies. You don't like the way he looks. You don't like how he appears so much in the press. But all the different things they were saying about him, you're right, fascist, Nazi, stuff like this. Like, all of these people saw Donald Trump on TV. They saw Donald Trump at Trump Tower. They saw Donald Trump in New York restaurants for decades. And they turn around and start saying this stuff. Absolute nonsense. They know better. That's the issue. They all know
they're lying
better.
On purpose.
Right, exactly. And they sold this to the American public and helped drive the American public crazy, or at least half of it.
for a combination of money and virtue signaling.
Kicks.
Oligarchical power. They're consolidating their power base.
I mean, kind of, but Brian Stelter is going to be living in a shoebox if this country falls apart. He's of no societal value. I mean, the dude probably can't even lift a heavy bag to help someone load their luggage into a car. I'm not trying to be overtly disrespectful. I mean, quite literally. What would a man like Brian Stelter do were it not him running a propaganda, state TV for the White House?
This is fascinating because that's the way that I see the press. The press is the courtier class, right? This is what they are. If we're looking at the oligarchs, these are the retainers. These are the people who work. And don't you like what Monsieur has said? Don't you like with the new application that Monsieur has designed? Aren't you interested in the new show that Monsieur has produced? That's what they are. The retainers. These are people who are their jobs are about messaging on behalf of the oligarchy.
It reminds me of that episode of Simpsons where Mr. Burns is fleeing to his escape pod. I forgot why. And then, Smithers tries to go with him. He's like, "Oh, sorry, there's no room for you." And then it launches him in the air. They're the weak little betas who will say anything and everything for the corrupt elites who are extracting the resources from this country. But when all is said and done and the country falls apart, they're the first in line for whatever bad is going to be coming. They provide little of, if anything, in terms of value to society. I mean, these are people who live in New York City, who live in giant concrete cubicles, who espouse propaganda for the state. When the state has lost confidence of the people because the elites have extracted too much and now the system topples, where do they go? They have what reasonable skills do they have? Hey, Dylan Radigan went and started doing hydroponics. That guy was smart. 10 years ago, he's like, I'm out. I'm not going to be playing that game.
that guy's awesome.
Yeah,
That guy's legit.
I mean, if you look at the history of these different, if we think that this country is heading toward a very dangerous, very dark place, it may be, it may not be, but regardless, if you look at the history of things that go bad, if you look at the history of authoritarian states, how these things begin, the bad things that happen, right? It's a mistake for the ideological class, for the ideologues. They're always caught in the middle of it. Yeah, it's a very bad idea.
Well, I just think that the nature of America, as you mentioned, stubbornness, it's a lot of defiance. It's not going to go the same as, say, Russia would or many of these European nations would. It'll be different. Call it a civil war, call it whatever you want. You know, we mentioned this quite a bit in the context of it, but there's a dividing line forming between these states, which you mentioned with the vaccine segregation and the passports, which lends itself to the idea that if Joe Biden and the Democrats keep extracting and destroying this country, at what point will the Republicans cut things off, and how will they do it? Maybe Texas announces Texas coin, a cryptocurrency for the people of Texas, a local currency to protect the value. Look, Florida would probably do it first, to be honest, because you got DeSantis. He'd probably launch, and they just had the Bitcoin conference in Miami. Right. Think about this. Florida could launch, as a governmental entity, a DeFi coin, Florida coin, that is legal tender in the state of Florida. And what are the feds going to do? I mean, I'm sure they would freak out.
Probably buy a bunch of it.
Maybe. The issue is, so long as the Fed can print money and Biden can hand it for free to Cuomo and to Newsom, to Whitmer, when they spend money and destroy things, they are extracting the wealth from the people of Texas and Florida and the other states, Utah, Idaho, etc.
Productive states.
That's right.
I'm still thinking about the the Greek democracy. It's so parallel. They say history rhymes, not necessarily in repetition. So what happened was they defaulted on their tax debt was the first thing they did to get out of this problem. The second thing was that they freed their slaves. Okay, so we're not in a state of slavery right now, although you could argue that we're in fiscal slavery.
Student loan debt.
Abolish it. But what happened was then the poor people came up and they started to demand the rich people's property. And the guy that had been put in charge, this guy named Solon, was this brilliant, merchant guy. He wasn't a landowner, but he was just this really, really smart guy. Said, no, we're not going to strip the wealth from the rich. So it's going to happen again, probably. It's likely that people are going to start demanding that we strip the wealth. What we see now, it's different, is the mass printing of money. They didn't have that in ancient Greece. They didn't have this money printer, this Federal Reserve system, this fiat. So I don't know how, other than establishing a new currency and issuing a debt recall, and voiding like the value of the dollar over like a 2-year period.
This is why Bitcoin is key. Why I'm so bullish on Bitcoin. I'm not telling anybody else what to do, but we talk about how, I mean, you really got to understand this, that the blue states were in serious trouble before the pandemic. Their debts were piling up. We had in New York City, they want to do the Amazon headquarters. AOC comes in, starts spitting and yelling, and then Amazon pulls out, costing them $30 billion or more over a 10-year period. They need that money to fix the MTA. So they're in serious trouble. Well, don't worry. Don't worry. You see, Donald Trump said he wasn't going to give them a bailout. Fortunately for them, Joe Biden wins. Joe Biden gives them all the cash they need. Now they got some cash reserves. But that is causing hyperinflation. Or I shouldn't say hyperinflation. It's causing inflation. It's really high, depending on who you ask. That means for someone in Texas who wants to buy a computer, your ability to buy these goods has been taken from you by the corruption of Andrew Cuomo. How long will they stand for this? I don't know. They might just be like, okay, whatever. Fine, whatever. And then the federal government gives grants and loans to many of these states. Anyway, many red states are getting money from the government. So they'll probably just say, sure, fine, whatever. But it is the savings of the people in these places that are being devalued and the governments that are benefiting from it.
Right. It's terrible. I guess one question is how long, what's going to make people change? What's going to break them?
Take their food.
What will it be? Yeah.
So long as they have food, people will probably do nothing. So it's got to. So this is. I'll give you. Here's my advice to the despots. You just got to go slow. You can't. You can't throw boiling water on a frog. You got to put the frog in a pot and then boil the water. That's how it's done. Otherwise, they freak out, right? Make sure their food costs don't go too high. You got to keep it below around 40% of their income per week. Otherwise, they snap.
You're right. I was watching this video last night about the hunter-gatherers. I think it's it starts with an H. The Hansa. It's the last hunter-gatherer tribe in the world in like Eastern Africa. And this guy goes there and hunts with them. And they asked one of the hunters, what's the most important thing on Earth? Like, what is it? What's the greatest thing? And he, without even thinking, he said meat. And he's a hunter, so he thinks meat, but it's food. It's food.
Right.
We think about all these lofty ideals and ways and love and all. It's food.
You need food to live, bro.
Dude, it's all about the food.
Water.
And food. Because if you don't have water, the food will kill you.
If these shortages get worse, I mean, you need only look at these photos of shopping markets during hurricanes. All the meat is gone.
Oh, yeah.
The vegan section's fine though. People don't want to eat bugs, and they'll try eat the bugs. Come on, you eat it because we're gonna have steak. We're gonna have fancy steaks. You guys eat the bugs though. Take their food away,
you'll be
and
happy
people will
with
go
the
nuts.
bugs.
But there is a way out. There is, and it's I don't know the regulations or the laws on this, but it would be really amazing if Texas just said, "Hey, we're making Texas coin."
That'd be awesome. Every state should have their own.
I mean, it used to be that way. The states used to have their own currency. You can go online. It's amazing. I went to one website where they sell Rhode Island dollars. Yeah. Like legal tender in the state of Rhode Island early on, nowhere else.
Is it just a 1-for-1 to the dollar?
I mean, I guess another thing that would be interesting is if you look at, people, I don't know if it's still there after COVID, but people have spoken about California has the world's third largest economy. So what about Texas? What about Florida? It seems that Florida is particularly... California's economy is enormous because of its trade with Asia, especially with China, right? But if you look at Texas and Florida, these states are also well disposed to trade as well. So what are the different ways for red states to build their economic strength?
I'm willing to bet the feds would storm in 2 seconds with guns if any state tried to do this. But imagine if Texas said, okay, here's what we're doing. As the government, we're going to be issuing a cryptocurrency called Texas Coin, where we'll print 21 million over the span of 100 years, and it's mined or whatever. However, if you are a resident of the state of Texas or a registered business and you're a representative of that business, you can exchange your Texas Coin for US dollar, which means in the Texas economy, they back their currency. No, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work because inflation would still hit them. But imagine they said, oh, no, they could. It would be an exchange rate between the dollar and the Texas coin. Then the Texas coin is deflationary. So if you live in Texas and you choose to accept Texas's currency, its value goes up while the dollar goes down. People in Texas are going to be like, I don't want to use dollar anymore. And if you ever need to, you can just go to the government and as a resident do an exchange.
Do you think this is I mean, are people talking about this?
No.
Huh.
I'm not. It just came to my thought of it.
That's
I'm sure some people are.
It's really interesting.
I mean, Florida. I don't even think the government needs to do it. If the government backed it, or if anyone created a reserve and said, imagine this, right? There's a lot of cryptocurrencies. Each and every one can be exchanged for some monetary value. For the most part, some don't. Some are private utility tokens. But let's say Dogecoin right now is at like 35 cents or something. What if the only way to actually do an exchange, it was only available to the people of the state of Florida? Now, if you live in Texas, you can have some, and you can trade it with people in Florida, but you can't get dollars out of it unless you're a resident. Then the residents would be like, oh, we want to accept this because we can use it amongst ourselves, retains its value, becomes more valuable. So if someone pays me 1 Florida coin and I put it in the bank in a month, it's basically worth 2 Florida coin. I'm not taking those dollars. I'm taking the Florida-backed crypto. And then the value, it costs, when it starts, it's 1 to 1. $1 is 1 Florida coin. A month later, $2 is 1 Florida coin because it wouldn't be that dramatic, but inflation 5%. You could always just exchange it back for US dollars. It would be like literally any other cryptocurrency. The difference is the state government of Florida or Texas or whatever state, or maybe New York would do it, are putting regulation on it statewide, which provides incentive for people in that state to use it and doesn't allow exchange for dollars outside of the state. However, people could still trade off market, right? Someone would be like, hey, I'll give you Texas coin for dollars or whatever. And you could do that anywhere.
You could have it do discounts too locally. Like if you spend New York coin in New York, you get a 1% discount on anything you buy.
It would be easy to tax. The government could have fees on every transaction instantly taxed.
Do we have a sense of like how different the difference between the Trump administration and the Biden administration on cryptocurrency? Is there a big difference?
Trump hates it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what Biden's position's been. I mean, they're trying to regulate it. Trump called it a scam. He's wrong. But it seems like the federal government really does not like it.
State Street's going in hard on crypto right now. They're the second. I think it's the second or third largest investment firm in the world, alongside BlackRock and Vanguard. But State Street, if you look up State Street News yesterday, they're launching a cryptocurrency division. So
to me, Bitcoin is a savings account. You put if you put your money in a bank, it's losing value every day. You put it in Bitcoin, it's gaining value every day. I don't care what they say when and again, I'm not telling anybody to buy anything. No financial advice from me. What I'm saying is Bitcoin, based on the function of it, the capitalization, the liquidity, the everything, it's going up in value. Now, in the short term, you can see volatility, but you ignore that stuff. I don't care if Bitcoin dropped to $10 right now. I'd panic buy as much as possible. Like, wow. Yeah, I'd go nuts. I'd just buy as much as I could. But I don't think people. I mean, people.
Where
is
it
crazy.
now? Where is it?
I think it's at 36, maybe 35. It was at 37 earlier. It was at 32 the other day. Like if you're day trading, you're probably making a killing.
Do you check it out all the time? I mean, are you?
Sometimes I forget.
Sort of
3 days.
Sort of. I've always just been someone who's bought and then ignored it because it's a savings account.
I was day trading for a while. You can make a lot of money if you're day trading. I mean, you can make like 2 to 7% daily. It's crazy how much money you can make per day.
Because of the volatility.
And if you're moving $10 million a day, that's 70 grand and just like
it hit 65K and then it dropped to 30 or whatever, and it was mostly poor people who panicked and sold off, and all the rich people were laughing the whole time because the rich people aren't worried about short-term losses like this. Right. It's like, dude, if I buy one Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. But if you're poor and you put in your only $200 hoping to turn it into 400 and then the market tanks, you panic and pull it out, you've lost your money. You buy when you can. For me, I'll buy when I can and I forget about it.
Something Ron Paul was talking about a lot was getting rid of this law that says that the U.S. government or Congress has the monopoly on a currency control, of currency creation, basically, which they've already offloaded to the Federal Reserve anyway. So they're basically, they've given up their responsibility to some quasi-private public company. And Ron, I don't know what the exact law is. Dave Smith was talking about it while he was on the show, but Ron Paul's been, we need to repeal or remove that restriction so that we can all legally create our own and create a market of currency market, because the U.S. dollar can't carry the load. It's odd. We're watching it happen.
I would rather own rocks. Like I'd rather buy a bag of gravel than have a U.S. dollar right now.
I wonder what the value of that's increased by.
Gravel's going to go up. It's going to become more and more expensive.
Sand. Yeah, you're right. Timber, right.
Absolutely. So we got these parks built here, And it's too these days we couldn't get it done. It's too expensive. But the best thing is they had leftover oddly shaped lumber here and there and boards because they cut things and they say here's the waste. And the guy I remember when they were building, they were like, so we'll have this all hauled away. And I was like, no.
Yeah,
At the time I was like, just throw it in the shed because we like building stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll build something. We built some like PVC rails like for skating and stuff. And now we have this shed full of wood. And I'm like, wow,
thousands and thousands of dollars.
no joke. At the time it was probably a total of like $1,000 worth of materials a year ago, and it's probably worth like $7,000 or $8,000 now.
Right.
Some ridiculous amount of money for all these materials. Plus, there's just like there's like steel bars and pipes and stuff that you use for skating on. So, wow, I'm like, we could probably do a sale on this, make a ton of money right now. No, but I want it because we want to build stuff.
You go in the construction company and yeah.
I would rather have a bag of rocks. No joke, because sourcing the rocks is hard. Sourcing the dollar is nothing. Joe Biden's just making it rain on everybody. And I'm like, there's no scarcity of the dollar. Someone's got to go and get those rocks. That's got value.
That's interesting. That's a great sales pitch. That's fantastic. I'm holding a bag of gravel. I'm holding
Rock
a bag of
salesman
rocks.
right here, yeah.
I'm holding a bag of rocks.
But I'm being serious.
No, I know. I know. That sounds great.
If somebody came with like a Home Depot, gray gravel for the driveway, I'd be like, how much?
I'd love
$10. I'd be like, done.
I'd love to see an Alec Baldwin version of this, like Glenn Ross. You walk into the room, you're holding a bag of rocks, just like that.
I'm gonna buy some rocks.
Always be
No kidding.
selling.
Always, that's right.
Always be selling.
That's ABC. Always be closing. That's what
Always be
ABC.
closing.
Always be closing. That's Glengarry Glen
And you're
Ross.
holding the bag of rocks, and
Yeah.
that sounds
The problem is,
fantastic.
where would you store the rocks? Hence, we created currency to
Yeah, but the
stand
currency
in for the.
inflates. The
Yeah.
rocks don't.
It
The
didn't
rocks
used to, no.
deflate. Well, I guess the rocks inflate in value, but the dollars become worthless. So buy the rocks now for $10, and then in a month it'll be worth $12.
Yeah.
That's no joke, dude.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to grind up that gravel and move it around.
What's like the most worthless thing you can imagine? I mean, look, things you normally would think are worthless that people wouldn't want to have: wood,
glass.
Back at the other house where we had the studio, we had a bunch of wood that we just bought because it was cheap and we were using it to build stuff. We just left it. We didn't even care. That's probably a couple $100 right now that we just left behind. That was only like $20 when we bought it.
I mean, I'm getting bookcases made. I know what it looks like. I know how much more it is now than it was a year ago.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.